Hello and welcome to Pirate Radio. I am your host who needs no introduction whatsoever. This is, what is this, episode number 57, I think, and this is August the 7th. It is 7:30 in the p.m. Central Time. Feel free, if you're listening to this later on, to come hang out. It's streamed live on Rumble and X. You can comment, do all the things. I would stream live on YouTube, but they have some weird rules about firearms, and sometimes I like to bring out a firearm in a live just to show a comparison, and tonight will be one of those nights. So, before we get going too far, got to plug the people that support the channel, besides the viewers. You guys are great. But Die Free Co., you can go to Die Free Co. on the World Wide Web, enter Toxic10 at checkout, get 10% off all their cool little things like this little tiger claw here, which is basically somewhere in the neighborhood of a vertical foregrip and a barrier stop. Very cool little product here and cool little artwork. You get a sticker that looks like that as well. And then their DOS boot here, which is basically a mag extension for PMags, says Gen 3, does work on Gen 2. You get that cool little sticker of that little cowboy guy. It also makes it into a monopod because it's got little grippies there. But that's pretty cool. So go support the channel. Toxic 10, do all the things. Update in my little world, I have acquired a Primary Arms optic. Primary Arms does not support the channel at all, but it's a micro prism optic, and it weighs as much as a boat anchor, so it should go really well on my Colt 723 AR retro build. It's not an actual Colt 723, it's a clone, but hey, anyway, should be right at home on that super light rifle. Put a real heavy optic on the top rail, and it'll make it fun to shoot. Anyway, so for tonight's show, we're going to talk about the Idaho shooting that happened at an In-N-Out burger joint. Was it last Saturday? Forget exactly when. But if you're not familiar, some piece of shit decided to shoot up the drive-thru of an In-N-Out burger. There was a hero that made waves that I think was later that day the video came out of Mr. Jordan Salinas, who engaged the shooter at some pretty decent distance. He engaged the shooter with an FN-57 pistol. And if you're not familiar with what a FN-57 is, in the late 80s, FN designed a round, and it is called the 5.7 by 28 millimeter round. This is that guy right here. If you're not watching this, it is a kind of looks, if you're not familiar, it almost looks like a very small rifle cartridge. Here it is in comparison to a 9 millimeter. I'm hearing noises. I don't know why I'm hearing noises, but I'm hearing noises anyway. Here it is in comparison to a 9 millimeter. So it's a little bit taller, not as wide. Anyway, got a bad camera for doing this. The point is that he engaged the shooter with a very spicy boy round. It's a very light round. Moving in a... What is going on here? We're having technical difficulties. Imagine that. I think my mic is working. Anyway. Where was I? So he engaged the shooter at distance with a 5.7 FN-57. I don't have an FN-57, but I have a Ruger 5.7. This is what that guy looks like for comparison. This is a Glock 19. It's a Gen 6, but the dimensions are about the same. Anyway, you can see quite a bit wider grip on my 5.7 pistol here. Quite a bit longer sight radius, all of those things, which technically makes for a more accurate, if that's the way you guys want to put it, more accurate pistol because it has a longer sight radius, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm going to make a video about that, put it on YouTube about the 5.7 and what it is, what it does, all of that. So anyway, without further ado, turns out I've not been following this story super closely until today where I did some more homework, and the police just released a video that came out, I think it was earlier this morning. They released a lot more video, and we are going to play said video. So without further ado, Here, this is a video from NBC News, and this video shows quite a bit of stuff. It has the news anchor voicing over the top, which, whatever. I'm not a huge fan of the, this is the thing that happened. But anyway, here we go. Video from the police there in Idaho, and report from NBC News. So here we go. Here's the video. Maybe.
Tonight, chilling surveillance video edited and blurred by police shows the Twin Falls In-N-Out shooting that claimed the lives of 3 and injured 7 others. The 24-year-old shooter pulling up to the popular fast food chain's drive-through window in a white Honda Saturday afternoon, shooting and killing employee Ashley Garibai. Next, calmly walking up to this vehicle with a handgun, killing driver Chris.
By the way, just some situational awareness type thing. Let's do this little thing here. Let's do the situational awareness. Okay. Everyone have some situational awareness. If you are sitting there in a drive-thru and you hear a loud bang, I know you're on your phone, you're doing all the things, you're waiting for your food, blah, blah, blah. Have some situational awareness there. He's able to shoot a employee, then walk up calmly. I mean, look in your mirrors. If you see a guy with a pistol, drive forward, drive backward, do whatever you got to do, but have some situational awareness about you. Sorry to be that guy, victim blaming or whatever you want to call it, but hey.
Christopher Clonch. This man seen running to confront the gunman is then shot. Police say he's former Twin Falls officer Austin James Scott. He survives. The gunman returning to the drive-thru, firing more rounds inside. Police say his gun jams. He goes to his car and retrieves a rifle. Inside the restaurant, sheer panic.
Notice the guy coming over the counter with a pistol pulled. By the way, again, here's the thing. I know that an employee of yours was just shot. Let's just point some things out here. We have one guy coming over the counter with a pistol pulled. The newscaster will tell you who that person is here in a second. But piling up on the floor, not a good thing to do. And by the way, if you look at the top of the screen, there's an In-N-Out employee who's just in a fetal position in a corner, in a 90-degree corner wall. Move, people. Move, move, move. Just move, move, move. I'm going to go back just a hair here and start it over.
Rifle. Inside the...
Look at the pile of people. What are we doing? What are we doing here? Yes, I'm going to be critical of all these people. Anyway, we continue. Watch the hero come over the counter.
Restaurant, sheer panic as this off-duty state trooper climbs over the counter with his gun, ushering employees to safety.
Well, I'm going to go back because the person I thought was cowering up here at the top is actually 2 people cowering in fear, just waiting to be killed.
As this off-duty state trooper climbs over the counter with his gun, ushering employees to safety. He and the gunman exchanging fire.
I don't know who these fellas are here in the back. I know who the state trooper is, off-duty state trooper with the pistol. I don't know who these old guys are milling about, but whatever.
Outside, the gunman runs and falls, getting back up, returning to the window, letting off another barrage of bullets. Video recorded by a witness shows the moment Good Samaritan Jordan Salinas also engages the gunman.
We're going to go back to Mr. Salinas there because, I mean, this is the iconic picture that we all saw. This is the one. This is the 5.7 pistol. This is apparently uses a shoulder holster, has a suppressor on it. He does have a YouTube channel. He had videos out. Still has, I assume those videos are still out. Is he doing it exactly how you probably should do it? No, but he's doing something. He's returning fire at the gunman. The other thing is like, as we just sit here and we look at this guy, we go, why is he out in the open? He's not under concealment or cover. I don't know that he's not behind concealment. I'm not exactly sure where this bush is, where this tree bush thing is. But understanding the difference between concealment and cover, you know, maybe it's the only shot he has. There's some pillars in the way. There's cars in the way. If this is the only shot you have, you can take that shot. The ball's on this guy, man. I think that's kind of where everybody's at. But yeah, just Good Samaritan who has trained for this or trained with his firearm, and this is one of those possibilities.
So engages the gunman, forcing him to run away. At a nearby Tesla charging station, the gunman shoots 3 additional people, killing Del Schultz inside his car. The shooter in...
Again, so
entering a visitor
So
center.
he comes in the visitor center. These people off to the right, if you're watching this, got lucky. They're cowering. I assume he cannot see them. I'm not sure. But you got lucky. Here's the thing, look for exits. Okay, obviously you don't want to run out the front door. Fair enough. There's always a back door. Fire marshals, local authorities make you have back doors to buildings just in case of fire. And this is a different kind of fire, but hey.
You see people crouching down, hiding just feet away. He leaves, engaging outside with a brave employee who appears to talk with the gunman.
I don't know who this cat is, but he's got more balls than Jordan Salinas does, or she, or whomever it is, has more guts than anyone I've ever seen.
Police say that man distracted him long enough, allowing others to get away.
To that young man, you are a hero.
Where'd he go? That way?
The gunman is last seen going down a nearby trail, officers running close behind.
Hey! Show me your hands!
This is the moment officers confront.
All right, so the shooter self-deletes at that point. Cops didn't really get to, the taxpayers got to save money. So we're going to go back. I'm going to talk more about Mr. Salinas. There's a lot of people who did a lot of things. The former police officer who just went running, took a round, survived. Assume he ran up there with no weapon. I'm not really sure, but he ran up there regardless and took a round. You have the off-duty state trooper who went over the counter and exchanged gunfire with the shooter. You have, of course, Mr. Jordan Salinas, who exchanged, I'm not sure if he exchanged gunfire. That video is a little bit longer. I should probably preface this episode with, apparently you can't log into Twitter on a desktop, so all of my like normal videos and tweets and all that, I can't really share them because I don't have access to Twitter outside of my phone and, you know, stuff and things, Carl. But anyway, a lot of heroes that day, but I'm going to focus on Jordan Salinas because the others, outside of the guy with no gun who just saw the shooter and looked like he tried to say, hey, bro, what are you doing, bro? And then you didn't want to hear it. Salinas is the only one who's not an officer, who's not tasked, or a former officer, current officer, whatever, who's not tasked or technically trained to engage a shooter at all. He did this out of the kindness of his heart, out of a duty to his fellow man, I guess, is one way to put it, out of a sense of, you know, community, whatever you want to call it. And again, that video of Jordan, that was a cell phone video. I couldn't find it on here. Like I said, I have it on X, and I can't share it here right now, but it looked like he took some incoming and dove into the flower bed and got behind cover, or concealment, excuse me. By the way, difference between cover and concealment. Concealment means you can't be seen, but you could take a round if they fired that direction. And cover means that you're behind a barrier that's going to absorb a round. So concealment means you're hiding behind bushes. And cover means you're hiding behind concrete, in essence. So he dove for concealment, get out of the way of the rounds. He did pop up and look like he fired a few more rounds at the suspect, at the shooter. But here's the thing that, again, I want to focus on. I've talked about before. I know I talked about it with the shooting that happened, the Hanukkah, I believe, shooting that happened in Australia, where he had the two jihadis, father and son, jihadis shooting people on the beach, shooting and killing people on the beach, and a very lackadaisical response by the police who were there, mind you, and still allowed them to get off numerous shots. But I talked about it then, and I'll talk about it now. You have to have the imagination that these things can happen. And Jordan Salinas had the imagination that these things could happen. I haven't personally watched his YouTube videos, but I've seen clips of them where he is training on the ground and shooting, his feet in front of him, shooting over his feet. Is that a position you are ever going to find yourself in? The probability is really low, but the possibility is there. Are you ever going to shoulder holster an FN-57 pistol with a suppressor? Well, he is, and he had trained with that exact setup, or at least a similar setup. I assume it's the exact setup, suppressor, what have you. And he had trained with that weapon numerous times. He knew what it was capable of. He knew what he could do with it, and he was familiar with it. You can comment all you want, and a lot of people have, about the setup with a shoulder holster and a suppressed 5.7. The thing is like this is already a pretty large pistol to be trucking around. They're very light. That's one of the big advantages of a 5.7 setup. I'm using these terms interchangeably, whether it's an FM 5.7 or this Ruger 5.7. There's not a huge amount of difference between the platforms, other than like a little bit of form, if you will. So these are, fairly interchangeable as far as like as we're discussing today. So something like this with another 5-6 inches worth of suppressor, there's no way to really conceal this in a like traditional conceal carry position, like an inside the waistband. You'd have to do an outside the waistband, which is going to look really weird. You're just going to have, this is fairly hard to conceal already because you have so much slide. Compare it to the Glock 19 again, which I daily a Glock 19 clone, semi-clone. It's like a cyborg, really. Anyway, so these two are, you've got approximately 2 inches longer of barrel and slide on the 5.7, and then when it comes down to grip, put the 19 in front. Grip approximately, 3/4 of an inch, maybe an inch. Okay, now we're back. What the fuck, man? Ugh, technical issues. Anyway, where were we? Sorry for the delay. We're talking about a 5.7 pistol at some point. So it's an imagination thing, and what a lot of people fail to do is have an imagination of things that can happen out there in the world. That's where I'm critical of a lot of like police departments I was very critical of the police department in Australia, because they had a lack of imagination that a mass shooting can happen, because they have all of these different gun laws and what have you. You see the response from the Idaho police. They're all showing up with ARs. They know it's an active shooter. They were there pretty quick, from what I understand. But the thing is, you as a citizen, I just watched a documentary about Hurricane Katrina, and it was a pretty slanted documentary, and it's a catastrophic situation. But the fact of the matter is the people that were in New Orleans when Katrina hit and the aftermath and went through all of that horrific flooding, they had a lack of imagination, and they relied on the overwhelming sense throughout that entire documentary was they were just like, why isn't the government doing something? Well, here's the thing. The government can respond. It will take a little while, but when the infrastructure is completely gone, there's nothing that they can do. You have to wait for water to recede. So the thing is like, it's the age-old adage here of you're your own first responder. That's how we view these things in the the preparedness space, or the Second Amendment world, or whatever you want to call it. That's the whole thing, is like we kind of have this whole thing of like we're prepared for certain things to happen, and we have this imagination that it could happen. We don't want it to happen, but the thing is we have this imagination that, hey, when you're out in a public space, people are nuts. People have whatever issues and whatever medications they're on, and they're not in their right mind, whether that's, something pharmaceutical or something. Just think about homeless. The homeless issue is an issue everywhere. It's an issue in Tulsa, it's Oklahoma, it's an issue in Los Angeles, New York, wherever, any major city that I've seen here recently, or people have told me has an issue with homeless that wasn't there 10 years ago. Okay, I've gotten into reason. We're not going to get into the reasons for that. But the thing is that just take a homeless person who has an addiction of something, whether that's narcotic, alcohol, both, mix in some mental illness, mix in, just whatever. You should have this imagination of what a homeless person potentially could do to you and yours or whatever. Whether that's you're driving down the street and they just walk out in front of you, you should see that person on the side of the road. You should see them there. You should profile them. I'm sorry. I know it's a bad term and you're not allowed to do it, but you should definitely profile someone who is homeless and what they're doing and all of that. And then just say, hey, is this person coherent enough to not walk out in front of my vehicle? Are they facing the roadway? Do they look stumbly? Do they look a little off kilter? Or are they just standing there, minding their own business, leaned up against the post? Maybe they're not, but you should notice them. It's the same thing with this. If you're going to be out in public spaces, unfortunately, people are nuts. You should have the imagination, especially if you're going to carry a firearm, even if you're not carrying a firearm. You should have the imagination that, hey, if you're in Walmart or if you're in Costco or if you're in Lowe's or if you're anywhere, that the idea that someone could walk in and be like, yep, today's the day, going to make a name for myself. You should have that imagination. So you should get in the habit of having the idea that these things could happen. And that's where a guy like Jordan Salinas had the imagination that, hey, this could happen. He lives in nowhere, Idaho. And I don't mean that as a pejorative. I don't mean that in a bad way. But he's like, when you think mass shooting, when you think terrorist event, when you think bad crime, things of that nature, does anyone picture fucking Idaho? No, you don't picture Idaho. You picture big cities. You picture, things like that. You don't picture Idaho. This is one of those crimes that happen in a place where crimes like this never happen. Crime is probably very, very low up in that area of Idaho and Idaho as a whole. But you know what? It did happen. And Jordan was ready for that. Did he just run up there and Rambo the guy and put him down? No. And, I saw a lot of people really commenting hard in the paint about like, oh, he missed with all them shots. What about the people behind? Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's kind of a thing. But here's the thing. Think about all the people that get killed if he doesn't engage the shooter and take his attention. That's the other thing. That was one of the things that I tweeted this week was establish a base of fire. Here's the thing. I'm no military guy. I've always been a civilian. But there is a thing. I can still read a book about it. Just because I never did it doesn't mean I don't understand the concept, by the way. So there's this thing of establishing a base of fire, creating a distraction, and moving from there. And when you do that with someone who is in a military application, it's quite a bit different. But in a civilian application where you have a shooter who is trying to kill innocent people and you as a prepared civilian shows up and says, hey, I'm going to get involved. If nothing else, what Jordan did is he created a base of fire against an active shooter, which took his attention and made him respond, whether that meant he had to run away or he exchanged gunfire with him. Well, exchanging gunfire with you as the concerned citizen who has a weapon on themselves and is able to engage them means they can't shoot other innocent people. It also gives you this issue if you're the bad guy shooter. Hey, I've been found out. This is not a turkey shoot. We got people. So he's already exchanged gunfire with somebody inside the store. My thought of this whole thing is he probably at some point was probably going to try to go inside the store, in through the window, front door, whatever it was, but he got shot back at by someone inside the store, which I guarantee you he did not expect. And then when he's outside, the odds of him coming around that store, and mind you, where he retreated to was behind the store, was the drive-through lane as it went out and then back around. If he would have come back where the drive-through started, that's going to be the frontage of the store with glass and people running. If anybody watched the footage from across the street, that was some of the first footage I saw, was somebody sitting at an intersection watching people just come across an open parking lot. If he goes that direction, now he's firing at people running across a parking lot or maneuvering across a parking lot or catching people in their cars and shooting them through the cars. But because you had a guy inside the store exchange gunfire with him, and now you have Jordan out there exchanging gunfire with him, at least shooting at him, he has to retreat back to where there's nothing, back to that canyon that we saw in the video. That's where he had to go. So both of those guys saved so many lives It is absolutely, there's no way to calculate how many lives that those two guys saved. No way to calculate that. Um, I'm not really sure. I don't really care what the shooter's motivation was. That was one of the things in that story I just played, that we don't know what the shooter's I don't really care what his motivation was, but I know his motivation is now splattered all over that canyon in Idaho. The, that's another thing that bothers me about all of these mass shootings that we've seen over the years is people want to go, well, what was the motive? What were they doing? I don't know. I don't care. And this idea that you can create, you can figure out, you can profile, and you can have this like brain scan of this person and what the profile of them is. And so then you can better like figure out it's all nonsense. It doesn't work. You're never going to have like a brain profile. CTE is not real. You think that you can just look at somebody's brain or their upbringing or their habits or their interests or all of these different things, and you're going to know who the next school shooter is, but you never look at like the pharmaceutical aspect of it all. There's been some talk about, well, we need to bring back like mental institutions and basically forced institutionalization. It's like, okay, I guess you kind of have a point, but you really don't have a point because you still had issues with them. And I don't know, maybe there is a point for the forced institutionalization. It's not something I've really thought a whole lot about, and I'm kind of thinking through it as I'm talking. But the thing is like, so there were pharmaceuticals in like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Like there's pharmaceuticals there. There's pharmaceuticals in it. So until we attack the pharmaceutical problem, I don't think that we're ever going to have any sort of like restitution or cure as a society for this. The best response as a society I saw in that video that we just watched of multiple people getting involved and going after the shooter. That was the best societal response I think I've ever seen in one of these. These are, outside of the Nashville shooter where the cops, just went charging up there and fucking dropped the old shooter. I want to say a slur, but I don't want to get banned off the channel. Anyway, so I've lost my train of thought because I thought a slur. But this idea that we're going to like cure these people, that we're going to give them a pill and it's all going to cure. Kind of the counter argument to institutionalization is, well, if they were just in an institution, wouldn't they be getting the same medicine, or would they just be prescribing these medicines and saying, oh no, they're good now because we gave them this pill, and then they're just out there? I don't know. It's just one of those things of like, what are we doing? And of course there's the shitbirds out there, the whatever those horrible rights hating groups are that say, oh, it's the gun and this and that and blah blah blah. Well, no, they're inanimate objects. I've done 56 of these podcasts, multiple YouTube videos, whatever you want to call, whatever you want to say. There's firearms behind me. I've just handled 2 firearms. No one got shot. No one even got shot at. Now, the ones that I've handled are not loaded, but pretty much everyone behind me is loaded. You can see the shotgun shells on the shotgun there, right about there. Every AR behind me and one AK behind me is loaded. They're all loaded. There's a full-on like battle belt right there, fully loaded. But yet no one's died. It's weird. So obviously it's not the guns. I mean, this thing should just hop up, load itself, and shoot me, right? Just randomly, like I should be concerned about that. But I'm not. As crazy as the Europeans are from time to time, I'm not really too concerned about the old Glockenspiel coming up here and harming me. But anyway, I also want to point out that there's been a lot of talk since this incident and Mr. Salinas getting involved with this 5.7 pistol, which again, I still really dig that he was out there at the 5.7 just putting rounds down. That's the other thing I don't think I've mentioned. A 5.7, being the package as it is going to be a minimum of a 20-round magazine. Because he's in a free state, and we can have, like I am, we can have real magazines. So you're going to have 20-plus rounds in this, and the recoil is very, very minimal. It's a spicy boy coming in hot. You go with the Glock 19, standard magazine capacity is 15. Of course, it will take 17 magazines, Glock 17 magazines, which do hold 17 rounds. You can also get some extended mags and some like different base plates and up that. But the thing is you can do the same thing with the 5.7. These, I'm not really sure about the FN 5.7. They might be 23 round magazines at this point, but hey, point is you can fit a lot more cartridges and bullets in this guy than you can a regular Glock 19, and it still will be lighter to carry, even if it is in a shoulder holster. So I do also want to point out one of the things that came up after this was people started talking about truck guns and whether it's some sort of like modified pistol in a pistol chassis or like a 300 blackout and a foldable, this, that, or the other. There's a whole bunch of talk about truck guns. And I just want to say this about truck guns. They are stupid. I hate the idea of people toting around truck guns. Truck gun is a universal term. You can have a sedan gun or whatever, a trunk gun as well, whatever you want to do. But the idea that you're toting around some like AR style rifle that you then use my pistol to fight to the truck and I get the truck gun and I engage the shooter. It's like, well, see, here's the thing. Just from watching the video with the In-N-Out shooting in Jordan, what was he supposed to do? Fight to his truck at that point? Or like run to his truck and grab a rifle and then run to the guy? I'm not sure where he was exactly when the shooting started, but he had what he had and he had it on him. That's what he had. And that's how you should train. You should never train with some stupid truck gun. Truck guns are one of those like shit has hit the fan kind of things. It's like a zombie apocalypse type gun where, okay, if you want to take a bag gun around, that's a rifle platform that's, shortened down. Some like, 5.5 inch 300 blackout with a foldable stock or something like that. Okay, I guess that's viable because you're probably always going to have it on you. The dumbest thing about a truck gun is you're going to leave a gun in the truck, and you're going to leave a high-end gun in the truck, mind you, because if it's a pistol chassis or if it's an actual like AR that's a 300 blackout or something else, those aren't exactly cheap, and those are pretty desirable if you're a thief. I mean, that's a jackpot if you just bust open the window of your F-150 and now all of a sudden you're the proud new owner of like a CMMG Banshee or other platform. I mean, hell, we just hit the jackpot, dog. So truck guns are stupid, and anybody who thinks that a truck gun is viable is kind of stupid. Here's the other thing that you can get at the issue if you have a truck gun or, a gun in your vehicle. Now there's an intent application here that is possible. I'm not saying that you going and getting a gun out of your vehicle is intent to go kill somebody. What I'm saying is the concept and some of the parameters that could be misconstrued as intent are there, because what a DA can say is that, well, if you got to your vehicle, then you had the ability to leave the scene and you were not under imminent threat. Instead, you went to your vehicle, unlocked it, retrieved a firearm, and then went back. That can be intent. If you go back and then you engage a shooter and you kill that shooter or wound that shooter, there's an intent there. Your intent was to go have a gunfight, or at least try to. Just saying, guys, that's the thing. That's one of the like legalities of a truck gun in you doing the right thing of the sheepdog or the whatever you want to call yourself. You have to think about these things. Again, use your imagination. The imagination is, oh, there's a shooter. I have a truck gun, which is a rifle, which is a better platform for a shootout, which is accurate, which is true. You would much rather have a rifle, especially if you're engaging someone with a rifle. But in any shooting application, pretty much 9 times out of 10, you're going to want a rifle over a pistol. But the imagination is there of wanting to have the rifle, but you also need to have the imagination of a district attorney who's trying to make a name for themselves. In Idaho, what are the odds of that? Pretty slim. You get somewhere in Texas like Austin, the odds go up. I mean, just because you're in Texas doesn't mean Austin doesn't exist. So there's that thing. So stop with the truck guns, guys. Use your imagination for good for the good side and the consequence side. Okay? Just use your imagination. In other news, the Republican Party, or at least the people who contort to represent the Republican Party in the podcast and punditry world, and the quote unquote conservatives, hate your fucking guts still. What do I mean? Well, if you didn't notice this week, and some of you who might be normal and don't follow all of the things that I follow on the Twitters, you should just make your lunch or dinner at home, because the affordability crisis is not real. It's just you're lazy, and nobody needs a $20 burrito. Okay? So, friend of the show, Mr. Joel Berry, he doesn't know he's a friend of the show, I don't think. But you've been on here a lot, Mr. Joel. Oh, I thought I had it here. Anyway. So basically, see what had happened was Joel Berry decided, let's see here. Let me pull it up. We are producing. Look, this one's not my fault for bad production, because Twitter not allowing me to sign in on the desktop is not my fault. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. I'm getting there. I think I'm getting there. So this started with a tweet from 4 days ago from Matt Walsh, talking about Matt Walsh of the Daily Wire, not Matt Walsh the actor. Matt Walsh tweeted, "Grocery prices are insane. They're still rising. Addressing this problem should be the number one priority of every elected leader. End the stupid foreign wars and focus on this issue. It's one of the main reasons socialists are gaining power." That is a legit tweet. That is all pretty accurate. It's not one of the, well, let's see, one of the main reasons socialists are gaining power. Somewhat, that's, I don't know, I have a different theory, but anyway, it is one of the reasons. He's not wrong there. In the stupid foreign wars. Okay, yep, in that. Because that causes inflation, because you're spending money on a stupid foreign war. Any of that. Okay. So, Andrew Colvett, who I believe is a TPUSA guy. I don't know who Andrew Colvett is. I probably should, but I haven't followed all that. Anyway, he quote tweets Matt Walsh's tweet and says, "One of our TPUSA college students gave me his take on affordability." By the way, here's the thing about affordability. This is another leftist term, another term from the left that the right has now adopted and is using. Again, the left is setting the parameters for what the right can talk about. Stupid, stupid, stupid. But they continue to do it, which makes me wonder if they actually are honest about any of this, or if they've just always been leftists their entire time, or if they're just stupid. I don't know. It's like a stupid or liar scenario. I'm going to go with stupid. Probably is more liar, but I'm an optimist. My glass is half full. Well, it's like a third full, but let's top that baby off. Let's Topo Chico that thing off. And pour. The good pour, not the bad pour. Jesus Christ. You have derailed as a fucking host. Anyway, so affordability. Back to the tweet from Andrew Colvett. Quote tweeted Matt Walsh, "One of our TPUSA college students gave me his take on affordability. Quote, a burrito shouldn't cost $20, end quote. Yeah, a lot of this is a hangover from COVID and Biden-era inflation, but the lived experience is the same. It just feels like basic things cost too much." Again, lived experience, if you're not using that term like sarcastically, if you're using that term seriously, again, stupid or liar, that's a leftist term. Apparently I can reply to this post, but that's locked. Interesting. So, Joel Berry, friend of the show, old Joel, quote tweets Andrew Colvin and says, "Last night, my wife made homemade burritos for our family of 8, and it cost less than $20 total for everyone. I'm beginning to think the affordability crisis is really an I don't know how to cook crisis." And that set the Twitter into a firestorm. So here's the thing. Let me just attack Joel Berry's tweet. Last night, my wife made homemade burritos for our family of 8. Okay. I'm going to have to assume a few things. And I think he posted a tweet that clarified, but here's the thing. Let's assume 2 pounds of ground beef. So you're already at like anywhere between $8 to $15 there. Tortillas. You're going to need at least 8. That's probably one package, depending on how big they are. I don't know, where are we at? $4. So you're already coming up on the $20. So I guess there's no onion, there's no cheese, there's no sour cream, there's no accoutrement, if you will, to these bland ass tacos. And I guess that takes into the assumption that you already have the spices and those are just like going to last forever. And now before someone goes, oh, let's assume you have a pan too. Yeah, it is. You can reuse a pan like almost pretty much forever, dumbass. So without getting into like the whole specifics of exactly how you would make said burritos, I'm going to call bullshit on Joel. But a lot of people came to his defense and started posting those big old logs of what they call ground beef and saying, look, you can get like 4 pounds for like $3. And it's like, dude, do you hear yourself? So if you want to eat like slop, I guess that's fine. But if you're going to do that, you should just go to Taco Bell. Like you can still get like $1 or $2 burritos and shit. So anyway, that's set off the internet. So let's tackle the affordability. Affordability, as we're calling it, as we used to, and as guys like Joel and Ben Shapiro and others in the right-wing punditry world used to call it inflation. The Biden era inflation. Like Andrew Colvett said, the Biden era inflation. So here's the thing. The Biden era inflation is a thing. But the Biden era inflation was inherited from Trump and his COVID policies. Okay? Now, it took Congress as well to pass the huge spending bills that created inflation that really took off when Biden was then in office in 2021. There were already signs of it, but the economy, all of that, it was already starting to happen, but it really happened under Biden. Now, Biden did not help it. He made it worse. I will give you that. But the idea that somehow Biden caused all of this is ridiculous. But again, to go back to Biden and the punditry, these same people were talking about, if you remember, what was her name? Jen Psaki, who did a great job, mind you. Obviously, you know, that job as the White House press person, tough job. She did great. She was obviously lying, but for what the job is, she did really, really good. Okay? You have to admit that. Anyway, so if you remember, these people attacked Jen Psaki and the Biden administration when they talked about like 4th of July and what it would cost and this and that and how it was up, and then they countered that, all of that stuff. All of these same guys were talking about inflation and Biden era inflation, and this is Biden's fault, and you know, being able to afford groceries, blah blah blah. Affordability now is the term, and that term came up under. I remember that term popping up and being like common use, for the Virginia governor's race that the leftists won because the Republicans have done so bad. And they had a very weak candidate who they were just like, look, she's black. You got to you got to vote for her. So there's that. Get back to some of these other tweets. And, you know, it's just, inflation's up. It's not down. You know, they do this year over year thing. It's like, well, look, inflation's down 3% from last year. And it's like, okay, so it's down 3% over the 29% that it's up if we're going back to like, you know, just pre-COVID, and there's no cut in spending. We've launched another war. This is where Matt Walsh is correct. The inflation is already happening, and now we've launched a war in Iran, which is still ongoing. Whether it's hot or not is a different question, but we're still over there. We still have assets there. We're still spending money. We're still spending money in Ukraine, and we've cut zero spending. We've only added to it. The government takes in approximately $1 trillion per year in tax revenue. Our interest on the debt that we have, which is $40 trillion, takes up that $1 trillion. So we're not even like slowly but surely getting out of debt, and no one's even trying to. So what does that mean? That means your dollars don't go as far. That means that everyone's dollar doesn't go as far. That's before you get into factoring in like cost of fuel, which you can't farm raise cattle, any animals, or farm without diesel, without any sort of fuel. And so there's that part of it. Fuel costs more. Fuel is up, way up. It's still up. I'm in Oklahoma, which is an oil and gas state. We and I've been paying well over $3 a gallon since February, basically since March. Yeah, it'll go down 320. It's not 370. Great. It was fucking like $2.40 before all of this. Where's that? Now, it's not a huge deal for me, but it's still the thing. I'm not complaining about me. What I'm talking about is what I went through back in the day. And it's not just Joel Berry, it's Michael Knowles, it's Ben Shapiro, and then it's our not friend of the show, Eye Patch McCain, known as Dan Crenshaw, who decided to chime in. Old Dan. You're an idiot. Mind you, most of these guys are like, I know Ben Shapiro and Dan Crenshaw, they're Ivy League educated dipshits. They're just leftists. But here was Dan Crenshaw's response. Just hearing about this dumb $20 burrito debate, so thought I'd make the losers on social media angry before going to bed. Okay, Dan. Stop whining, get a job, eat ramen like the rest of us did in college on a budget with 4 roommates. The market doesn't care what you think something should cost. Only communists care. They set prices, remember. Then everyone starves, remember. Are you a communist or are you an American adult male capable of handling his own shit? And then he got community noted. First community note says Dan Crenshaw criticized the Biden administration for telling Americans to change dietary habits to lower their grocery bills. Oops. And then the second community note, Dan Crenshaw also has a history of insider trading stocks while in Congress, quote unquote, allegedly. So Dan got owned by all the losers, all you losers on the internets. Does that make you a loser by proxy, Daniel? To me, this is all cover for the midterm bloodbath from the GOP that the GOP is about to experience. You've had the Congress and the Senate and the presidency for almost 2 years now, and you've done fuck all with it. You've passed no meaningful legislation. The only thing that we have done is engaged in warfare in Iran. We have not protected the border under law. We have not sealed the border with a wall. We have no chance of actually doing that. We haven't passed a SAVE Act. We haven't passed a National ID Act. We've done none of these things. None of the things Trump talked about, promised, have come through or come true yet. There's always the possibility, but here's the thing. You lose the midterms, the dude's getting impeached, possibly going to prison, possibly getting removed from office. Don't know that to be fact, but the odds are pretty high. It's definitely a possibility. They've done it twice before. They've impeached him, weren't able to remove him, but they've impeached him. To think that they're not going to do that again if they take over the House and Senate, you've hit your goddamn head. So now you're playing damage control with this whole thing, talking about affordability. Well, you just need to tighten your belt. Again, like I've said before, and I tweeted this before, an $8 coffee being purchased by a 20-something is a flex on the rest of the world. Yes, our coffee costs $8, and yes, we can afford it. We are that rich, prosperous, and amazing that America has $8 coffee that should only cost like $1.50, but no, it's $8 because it comes in a fancy cup with a sweet lid, and we can afford it. Flex on all you poor countries out there, especially UK first. You don't even have air conditioning. Fuck you all. But no, now you have the party in power going, you know what? You don't need that macchiato or that iced coffee. You don't need a $20 burrito, bro. Just like, cut back. Don't worry about it. Because the $20 burrito is not about a $20 burrito. It's about an existential problem for Gen Z. And I'm old enough to remember as an elder millennial that my generation was the worst thing that had ever happened in this country. Millennials are lazy. They don't work hard. They don't do this. They don't do that. Yeah, so that was a thing. So anyway, so now it's just happening to Gen Z, and to Gen A is going to come next, but to Gen Z, It's like the debt itself. When you're spending $1 trillion just servicing the debt that you have as a nation, and you only bring in $1 trillion yearly as a nation through revenue, you don't see a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's what Gen Z, that's what the burrito is about. A $20 fucking burrito. Yes, are there cheaper burritos? Of course. Can you make a burrito cheaper? Of course you can. But the idea that there is a burrito in commonly available that's $20 fucking dollars is a euphemism for a $400,000 starter home. It's a euphemism. It's a metaphor, if you will, which you guys are too stupid to get, or you're just liars. Again, stupid or liar. That's the whole thing. You're either stupid or a liar, Joel. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Stupid or liar. I'm going stupid at this point. To talk down to your voting base, to the populace, ensures your defeat. And maybe that's the idea. I don't really know, but I'm checking out of that system, as I've told you before. Apathy is my new party, is my new political party. Just is. Because Trump was like the great white hope, and he failed us. We could make all the excuses in Trump administration won, and they were valid, a lot of them valid, that the powers that be, the deep state, the institutional power went against him, and it did. And it undermined a lot of his presidency, and it was just more of a flailing, not knowing what to do. But this time, he had the popular vote, he had the coalition, he had it all, and he completely fucked it up. He's not doing anything he said he would do. He's doing the complete opposite. And then his acolytes, who are running cover for him, who love the Iran war, are telling us all, do not believe your lying eyes when it comes to the price of food. He has not lowered food costs. He has not lowered fuel costs. He's not lowered housing costs. And here's the thing. It's not necessarily that he could lower the things, but when you come in saying that you're going to lower it through just like deregulation or whatever, you should probably do that, but you didn't. Can you artificially lower them like Dan Crenshaw thinks we're talking about? Sure, it doesn't work. Dan Crenshaw's right there. But we're not communists. That's not what we're talking about, Dan. What we're talking about is the idea that housing is so out of reach. Government creates expensive housing through bad monetary policy and really bad codes and zoning and all of these things and permitting. It's ridiculous what it costs to purchase an existing home, let alone build a motherfucking home. The idea that trying to build a house is somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 a square foot finished is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. If you're 25 years old and you're thinking about purchasing a home, it could be husband and wife, and the median home price is somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000, $400,000, and you got to save up 20%. So now you got to save up basically, $75,000, $80,000. How are you going to do that when burritos cost $20, when the price of fuel and food is skyrocketing, and the price of rent is not exactly low? What are you going to do? Live with your parents? I guess so, but our families are so broken and shattered at this point. I mean, the divorce rate in this country is ridiculous. Half these people's, like in the white community, the mothers are on some sort of not pain pills, but like some sort of like psychiatric pill, benzos or whatever. You want to live with that? You're going to take your wife around that shit? No. And that's if your family's intact. You're going to go live with your parents for how long? That's the other thing. So, if you've done the program of going to college, and even if you have just mediocre college debt of say $50,000, there's still a payment attached to that. And then you have to live somewhere, and then you have to buy groceries, and then you have to do this, and you got to have a car, and you got to have this, and you got to have that, and you got to have this, and just don't drink the $8 coffee, they say. Go fuck yourself. The idea that you could, save $10,000 is a hell of a lot of a better idea that you could save $100,000. How the fuck are you going to save $100,000? Even if you went to school, went to college, you paid for it yourself, and you get out of college and you get a median income job of $70,000. So you and your wife, you're married, you've done everything. Both of you make $140,000 per year. Well, the government's taking 35%, somewhere in the neighborhood of total between 30 and 40% of your money. So that's gone. Okay. And again, you got to live, you got to eat, you got to do the things. I guess you can pick, scrape, pinch, save, do all of the things just so you can possibly come up with a down payment of 20% on a home that then you still can't afford anyway because you guys make $140,000 a year, and now you're going to have a mortgage of $300,000. It's going to be in somewhere in the neighborhood of what? What is that? $2,000 a month before insurance and tax and all of that. So when you factor in escrow, you're talking about $3,000 per month. That's insane. That's absolutely insane. And the taxes don't go down, and the fuel doesn't go down. The fuel price, it is what it is. You know, you're obviously not going to buy a home in a city because those prices are astronomical. So you're going to have to go to a suburb, which means you have to commute. So your fuel costs go up, your food costs go up. Let's say you did buy the home, you saved the $100,000, you got the $2,000 mortgage. How are you feeling right now? Feel pretty good? You're not saving any money. You're definitely not doing that. So now your home is your only store of value. How's that going to work? You're even with it at best. You might not get your 100K back out if you have to sell it. And that's at this market. The market is cooling in a lot of areas. So what exactly is it that we're supposed to do? So I had a little trip down memory lane in my head of I was when the 08, 07, 08 global financial crisis, i.e. the government bank crisis hit, I was about 24 years old. I didn't go to college. I didn't have any student debt. I didn't have any meaningful employment, to be honest with you. I had learned a trade of carpentry, mainly a finished carpenter, which means I can do a lot of non-finished stuff, but I'm not a fucking framer. Fuck that. I can do framing. But the point is, I had a skill. I had a blue-collar skill. Still have it to some degree, just don't use it anymore. Don't use it quite a bit. Don't use it often is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, the point is, I had a skill, tangible skill. Now I can run any saw pretty much that you can think of. Nail guns, all of it. I know how to use a tape measure quite well. And I moved from Tulsa to San Antonio, Texas, and was doing okay. And then that was approximately 05, 06, somewhere in there. And then when 07 hit and 08 really hit, San Antonio was affected pretty bad. And the idea that I was getting any sort of job swinging hammer for anything more than about $8 an hour was insane. So I had to change careers very quickly. Knocking around at various jobs, ate a lot of ramen noodles and McDonald's McDoubles, which, by the way, still love both of those today. Ramen noodles, you find out how to make ramen noodles quite well. Not at the time. Also was not, I don't know that I ever filled my vehicle up unless someone like a parent gave me the money to do it. It would be $10 and $20 at a time, which would get me somewhere between 4 and 10 gallons, and you just keep doing it. It's pretty humbling when you're going through it, and it's not fun. You don't like it at the time, but you look back and you're like, okay, that wasn't that bad. And it's really not. It's not like someone's trying to kill you, anything like that. But it kind of feels like it at times. It's prior to my gun habit. Now I can afford those. But the thing is like you had to take some chances. You had to do something different. And I decided that to get into the service industry, which meant I went to bartending school. I scrounged up $600 and took a 1-week course for bartending. And I understand that I'm sure there's some people listening to this going, wow, who needs to train to be a bartender? Well, you don't necessarily have to train, but it's a crash course that, again, you do it in approximately, I think it was 5 days, $600, and they teach you all of the mechanics and basics, which I still know to this day. They teach you how to make a number of drinks, which most of which are not made anymore. have fallen out of favor, but you have the basics. You know how to set up your wells, you know how to set up your rail, you know what the well is, what a call is, what a premium is, you know how to pour, you know how to do any number of things. It's just basically all of the things that you would have to learn as a barback. If someone was willing to teach you, you now have them and can go out and find a job, which I did at a hotel. And I did that for, I was in the bar world between bartending, management, supervisors, all the, different things for approximately 10 years before I got into sales. So was able to make good money, get out of, poverty, and work your way out of it. And it was a tangible skill, and it's something that I would never want to do again because there's no future in it. But the fact of the matter is that you find your way out of it. But I didn't have at the time some piece of shit telling me how stupid I was, that I should just, you just need to eat the ramen noodles and be happy, asshole. No. I knew that if I did X, Y, or Z, I could get out of this, and now I have a home, I have property, I have any number of things, I've, all the shit behind me. I have a valuation on paper of like $500,000 or something, which means jack in shit. But I do have that, among other things. And I'm not bragging about the thing. What I'm talking about is there was a way to get out of this without people looking down on you and telling you you're a piece of shit and just need to eat cheaper. Yeah, we know that. Spending $20 on a burrito or $20 on a cheeseburger. Like, I mentioned eating ramen noodles and McDoubles. That's not all I ate. If I had extra money, I would go and do a sit down or buy steaks or whatever. Like, I'm able to splurge. I still bought things. I still had a pretty healthy drinking habit at the time, and that's not exactly in the cards. But you're able to get out of it. But, having politicians and their acolytes and punditry, I was listening to a lot of AM radio at the time. And instead of having people talking down to me, you had people telling you how to, do this, do that. This is a way out. This is the thing you can do. Here's some ways to save money. Here's what you can do. I took a lot of those to heart and moved on and just, stacked the proverbial toolbox of life skills and was able to do something with it. But to look down upon your constituency and your potential voters and just tell them, oh, no, you're a piece of shit. Don't do that. My thing wasn't an $8 coffee or whatever, Starbucks. My thing was Red Bulls, 2 for $6 or whatever. Well, you could save $6 by not doing Red Bull and just brew your coffee at home or whatever. I didn't drink coffee at the time. I guess I could have got like those Stacker 2 pills. I don't know what those cost, but those things are chock full of caffeine. But I like Red Bull. Why can't I have $6 a day habit of Red Bull? Yeah, you're right. I shouldn't do that. And you'd save $6 per day and you could stack that away. Yeah, you're right. 100% correct. But I did it. And I didn't have someone tell me I was a piece of shit for doing it. And that, oh no, that's not true. Oh no, that thing doesn't really cost $6. You could make your own Red Bull at home for $2. That's the thing about like Joel Berry's tweet talking about how his wife made burritos for a family of 8. You're talking to people who don't have wives or husbands. You're talking about single people. You're talking about people who are 20 to 25 years old and trying to find their way in the world, you fucking dickhead. You know what? I can't wait for the right to get fucking clobbered. I can't wait for guys like Joel who have to sit there and go, well, it's because of the groypers and because the people don't like Israel and it's because of Tucker Carlson. That's why we got killed in this. No, it's because of you. You get to look in the mirror and go, yep, I caused this because I'm a careless piece of shit. You can't relate to people. You can't. And he tried to like save face and provide some like life color, like, no, I've had to struggle before and blah, 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 blah. And maybe he has, but you know what? It's already too late. You already said the thing. You already said it. You already did the thing. You're a fucking dickhead. And everybody thinks you're a dickhead. So maybe just lean into being a dickhead and keep sucking Jeremy Boring's cock. And then maybe one day he'll like promote you or something like that if his show doesn't get canceled before because it's not very good. The thing is like you sit there and you talk about Tucker Carlson all day. Well, here's the thing. If Tucker Carlson just goes away, guess what? So is your show. You're like CNN in the face of Donald Trump not being president anymore. Well, there goes the ratings, dumbasses, because you're not that interesting. You're just, oh, I can't believe you did X, Y, or Z. Okie dokie. Fair enough. He's leading the charge. But, I mean, it's par for the course for the supposed conservative pundits of America who someone has to lead, and then they're just the cart behind that horse. It's just par for the course. So, anyhow, now I'm rambling. It's been fun. It's been real. We've talked about the Idaho situation. That was pretty cool. The situation wasn't cool, but the conversation I thought was pretty cool. It's a one-man conversation, but, whatever. It is what it is. And, it just comes back. I thought about my buddy Arthur and some of the things we had talked about before, and I'm probably going to try to get him back on the show here pretty soon, if he's available, to do some like pre-midterm kind of talk. We're in August. September's right there. We're not that far away from midterm, so it'd be pretty cool to get that kind of like what he's thinking on it. But the thing is like, I was thinking about Arthur because we talked about, when Trump came in with all his momentum and the Congress and all of that and the popular vote, and we really had it. It was, will conservatives govern? And I think we have that answer at this point. And now it's just a whole bunch of infighting because all the policies are failing. None of the policies are really working out. And we're now mired in another war in the Middle East with, we're trying to somehow end it, but not really end it, but maybe end it or whatever. And now we're talking about fucking burritos. So anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out. Thanks for listening. Do this every Friday, 7:30 p.m. live on the Rumbles and the Twitters. And hopefully Twitter will be back on my browser and I can share some things. But anyway, thank you to everybody for hanging out. Thank you to everybody who enjoys the show, tells a friend and what have you. Go to Die Free Co. on the World Wide Webs and use code Toxic10 to save 10%. But until next time, thanks for joining me. Thanks for listening. And everybody stay safe and make yourselves... get your imagination out there, think about things that could possibly happen, and make yourselves harder to kill. Until next time, peace.